Hashtag Media Group. Mayor, these are not the two only incidents for last so many years, and you were the biggest advocate for asking the bail reform. And you, in your statement, said the criminal negligence. This is criminal negligence. And Superintendent said that for some time we are doing the advocacy. It's not some time, it's I think 7-8 years for we are doing this. We are asking these same things. Media is reporting that. Who should be the accountable? Provincial government lawmakers, federal government lawmakers, because someone has to give answer to all those innocent lives lost, either on a Highway 401 crash where the innocent families, they died, or this incidents or many before. Someone should be accountable. Somewhere, someone should take the responsibility. Which level of government is that? And if you were the Prime Minister or the Premier, you would also have taken 7-8 years to bring the bail reforms. How could you have changed this differently? Because Canadians are sick and tired. Are you not sick and tired, Mayor?
I think we're all sick and tired and horrified. I think every level of government owns responsibility, and I don't think finger pointing between governments helps. We just need to solve this. In terms of adequate resources for the police to respond to every call of domestic violence, that's on us locally. It's why we had the largest increase in Peel police funding in our history, 300 new officers. And when I spoke at that budget debate, I said I don't want to see a 911 call that cannot be responded to when someone is dealing with the crisis of domestic violence. The provincial government has to adequately fund our correctional system and our courthouse, and it is at capacity right now, particularly in Peel Region, particularly in Brampton. And the federal government is responsible for the criminal code, so bail reform is their responsibility. The Youth Criminal Justice Act is their responsibility. And the reason I think we're pretty shaken today is that Savannah Kula's tragedy is just eerily similar to the case of Darian Henderson Bellman that really sparked our campaign in 2020 where we started the petition. It's just the details of these tragedies, how preventable it was, how the system absolutely failed, utterly failed their families. The fact that, in the same community, this can happen again. When we said never again, it's tough to take. Legislation that was introduced today by Justice Minister Sean Fraser is certainly, we have a level of optimism around this. The reverse onuses that we've been calling for firearm offenses, for domestic violence are in this legislation. I would note, we've also spoken extensively about organized crime and car thefts and extortions. Those new provisions are in the legislation that was introduced today, and so we need to see all the details. And I know the Peel Police will look at this legislation and see if it meets what we were asking for. But at first glance, it is very encouraging. But it should have happened 5 years ago. And Savannah Kula would be alive today. And so I think that's where our frustration really comes from, is that the legislation has been introduced. We know how the House of Commons can work and how the Senate can work, and things can go there and die for years. Our message is they want this passed today. In the case of Darian Henderson Bellman, the killer was released 5 times and then took his former partner's life. In this case, all the warning signs were there. This is a person with a history of firearm offenses, with a history of domestic violence. The notion that person was released when it was apparent to everyone that they were a threat is why we call this a preventable tragedy. This person should have been in custody, and he wasn't allowed contact. How does that happen? It speaks to a broken system. There is no reason that person should not have been in custody. But I'll ask Superintendent David Kennedy to speak to this. He's been the lead on this investigation, like I said, I think we're all shaken by this, because there's no reason Savannah Kula shouldn't be alive today if the system even operated properly for, there are numerous reasons that the killer should have been in custody. If one of them was adhered to, Savannah would be alive today.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I would just add to that in that, yes, we did come to learn that the suspect had a significant violent history. And yes, it was more than 2 years since the event in 2023, which he was last charged with firearms offenses. Clearly, his release posed a significant risk to Savannah and potentially others in our community. And, you know, what I would say is the potential changes are encouraging. I think we're cautiously optimistic, and we're encouraged that our collective advocacy and our voices are being heard, both at the OACP and the CACP level, certainly through the advocacy, the ongoing advocacy of His Worship, through our Police Services Board, all of our regional councils and our federal and municipal elected officials. That voice is now being heard. I think that's the first step of that level of encouragement. Again, the timings and being able to now implement and also activate these new changes. It's going to take some time for us to understand whether they are going to have the impact that we all hope it will, and that they will actually help those who represent the most vulnerable in our community, and they provide more stringent guidelines and restrictions on those who pose the most significant amount of risk.
4 children are motherless right now. I mean, who should be held accountable for this?
So it is a terrible tragedy, and that is I can't overstate that enough. We spoke about this earlier, that 4 children are now growing up without their mothers. This was by all accounts preventable, and as His Worship Mayor Brown said, we need only look at the case of Darian Henderson Bellman to see that that was another, by all accounts, preventable offense where a significant and tragic outcome came to a young woman at the hands of somebody who had offended time and time again. And unfortunately, we are now here because another tragic circumstance happened yesterday.
And as you know, we find it disheartening. Imagine being the officer that, you know, made the original arrest, and how disheartening it is to see that person they worked hard to apprehend then released so quickly and so needlessly. I do think the system is broken. I think the justice system is broken. And as I was saying earlier, on a federal level, it's very clear the criminal code is broken. The Youth Criminal Justice Act is broken. In terms of the courts and the correctional systems, there are resource shortages. Too often I hear about delay claims at the Brampton courthouse. Too often I hear about Maplehurst being at capacity, where everyone is being awarded credit for double or triple bunking or dead time. And so the system has failed the Darian Henderson Bellmans and the Savannah Coolas. And I think our plea is there is urgency into fixing this. Urgency for adequate resources on a provincial level. Urgency to getting this bail reform bill